So what we'll be looking at are list boxes in depth. Like, you're going to look at a few other ways that you can use your list boxes. We're going to look at combo boxes, which combo boxes was kind of introduced in one of my pre-recorded lecture videos that you probably have seen already, but in this particular chapter we will kind of look at it a little more and likely use it in your project that you will have to complete. Additional controls and objects is going to consist of the picture box object, which we have kind of already been introduced to, and you likely have used it. If not, it's totally okay as well, but I'm just going to kind of recap that. Another one is the menu script. I have also included lecture videos that include the menu script, and some of you may or may not have already started using it now that it was introduced. But menu script is something that we'll kind of review too. Multiple form programs. We're just gonna kind of understand the idea that you can have multiple forms inside of your project. You can use multiple forms when you are dealing with your application. So again, we're gonna review list boxes and combo boxes first. Now, we already know what our list boxes look like, and we already know that this here would be an example of what our list box, and this would be the naming criteria that we use, and that whenever you're wanting to add items, you can add items that you want to be listed there. And you'll see here that whenever you click on the tag here, you will have another little box to pop up that allows you to indicate what you want to be included in that particular list box. So far, you likely have been making the changes inside of the properties section, which allows you to add whatever string objects you want to be listed here in your list box. So this is what your screen looked like thus far when adding items to your list box. In previous chapters, I have introduced it in the previous videos where you can add items using this particular syntax. But for some of your projects, and especially I think from your class Computer 105, you have looked at printing or displaying information inside of the list box, instead of going ahead and already pre-filling your list box with items already. So now we're looking at doing a little bit more going forward. So this is here where you can list each item. Each item will be recognized as text, string text. And when you have added these items, each of them have a index where they are located, and it always starts with the number 0. So anytime you want to reference anything that's listed in the list box, you will use the index. So if I wanted to reference index 2, then it will select computer science. Okay, so whatever string is listed there or stored there or assigned there, that's what will be referenced whenever you use the index. So these will be considered your index values that allows you to access. Okay. So this is just another example of looking at a list box. So in this particular list box, we have the months listed, and you'll see all of them listed on each line. So this will be considered their index. Okay. Now, whenever you have, when you are dealing with the index always starts with 0. You will not start at 1. And you saw that with our arrays when we were dealing with array objects, where you would always start your index at 0. So make sure that applies whenever you're dealing with your list boxes as well. Okay. And here, this is just showing you how you would reference it. So we already know how we add items to the list box. So whenever we want to reference the particular index, here you'll see you have the name of your list box, you have your dot operator, and then items, which is basically referencing the items in the list box. And then this here will be the index. That's the index that you are indicating you want to reference. So index 0, which will be the very first location. Or if you wanted to access, maybe let's say you wanted to access location 5, then now it will use this index to select or grab whatever item is listed there. Now we have only used just a few basic properties of the list box, but there are other properties related to the list box. And as you see, the name of the list box, and then the dot text, which is basically going to select the item there. It's going to select the item as a string. And everything that's listed in your list box is referenced as a string. If you had numbers inside of that particular list box and you wanted to reference it as a number, you would have to convert it, which we've talked about back in variables and all of that. But you would have to take that value and convert it to a numerical value. Okay. So listbox.items.count is just going to let you know how many items are listed in that particular box. Listbox.sorted, of course, is going to sort the items in ascending order, all right, or alphabetical order. Just depends on what type of values you have. And listbox.selectedIndex, so it's just basically going to look at what index has been selected. So when we saw in the previous slide where you indicated index 0, 1, or 5, as I wrote, it will grab that index. That's the selected index. Selected index would be 5, okay? That's the selected item. That's the index of it. Or you're trying to identify the index of the selected item. So if you remember in the list of majors, we selected computer science. So if we selected computer science, the selected index for that particular string would have been location 3, I think it was, but whatever index that was. If you have not made any selection from the list box, the value here, whenever this is used, select the index, will be -1, which means nothing has been selected. So kind of go back to when we create our clear button and you want to clear everything out. If you're wanting to clear out the selection that the user made, of course you can clear it by setting the selected index to -1, which means now there's nothing selected here. All right, there's nothing stored here, or because nothing has been selected in this case. Okay. Also, what you can do is whatever index that you indicate here is going to display whatever is stored there. So again, like with the computer science example, so listbox.items and whatever the index is that you're wanting to display, and it's going to display whatever string is located there. Okay. You can also populate or fill the list box with items from or information from other sources. So listbox here .data source here allows you to store values there. So because we've used arrays, I'm going to kind of use the example that was given in the book, just in case some of you are reading the textbook and using the textbook. So let's do dim. And as you saw there, it has an array that it is initializing. So this is not a declaration. This is an initialization because we already know what values we want to store there. All right. So Mr. All right. Miss, I'm just going to keep it short because of space. Close that. Because of space, I'm just going to close it here. Okay, that's going to be the last one. So say you have this array called titles that hold the value Mr. and Miss. So we know arrays have an index as well. So Mr. is located in index 0, Miss is located in index 1, okay? But what if you wanted to use that array to fill your list box? So let's just say we have a list box here. And we're going to say data source equals now whatever the name of your array. So here, titles. So now what's going to happen is these values here will be placed in this particular list box. So let's come up here. So this is what this will look like. So this is your list box. And so now Mr. with the period, because it has a period, and then Miss, and then that's it, because those are the only two items in the array, okay? So that's just another way you can fill your list box, okay? So selected index change, these are just showing you what will happen, like certain events that happen with your list box. And you know, events is based on a certain action, whether the person clicked the button or checked their box or something like that. But in this case, when you're dealing with the list box, these are the type of events that can happen. Selected index change, like maybe you had one selection and then or the default selection was -1, but now you've made an actual selection, so that is a selected index change. So a click has taken place, right? Because now you've made a selection. List box click is whenever you click anything in the list box. That's an event, a click. Double click is when you have actually made a selection. Usually we'll double click to make our selection of what it is that we're wanting to use or see. So those are 3 actions or events that would take place. Now, Listbox methods, we know that methods are exactly the same as procedures. So you hear those interchangeably. If you've taken other languages, specifically Java, this is the term that's used. If you have taken C++, the term that's used is functions, and they pretty much are synonymous, but just remembering what they are and what they mean. And in this particular language, they are called procedures, but they are referenced using methods and procedures. So both of those are equivalent. Now, listbox items index of, so now index of whatever value here. So now you're trying to find the index of whatever you have placed inside of this particular parentheses. All right, so say for example I want to find the index of biology because it was in my list box, or like the previous slide, Mr. and Mrs., I want to find the index of Miss, which would have been number 1. The value would be number 1. Now we've talked about procedures, so you know this would be considered a function procedure because now it's going to return a value. It's going to return information. So whatever the index of whatever you pass here will be returned. So this is considered a function procedure. Okay. So here, list items, remove at. So now you're going to include an index here and you're going to tell it to remove whatever item is there. So whatever index, if you're saying index 0, then it's going to remove the very first item that's there. Okay. All right. So remove here, delete occurrence. So whenever you want to remove things from the list box, you can either remove by using the remove at to access the index, or you can indicate the exact string that you're wanting it to look for. So if I wanted to look for mathematics, then it will go to that list box and remove mathematics. Okay. And then if I want to insert, here's another way that you can insert into your list box. You can add an item into your list box. So insert here, and then you want to include the index of where you want to insert, and then you want to indicate what you want to add there. All right. So if you remove like whatever was in location 0, now I want to say I want to insert at location 0 art, you know, as a major, or Ms. in the other list box. Just depends on whatever list box you're accessing. All right, moving into the combo box. So the combo box control is just like a list box. All right, it's just, it has a drop down. So it looks like there's nothing there, or maybe one item, but it's actually, it has a drop down property. So here, when you're looking at it, it looks like nothing's there, but you'll have this little arrow. So it's 3 different types. There's 3 different styles. This is the simple style where you can see there's no drop down. In this case, it just has the list of items there. This is just a simple one, right? But then you have those that will drop down and allow you to make a selection. So once you click, the person clicks this arrow, the symbol, then a menu, a drop down menu, a drop down list will show of what items are there. And I'm pretty sure you have used these a lot on different forums and different things like that, just in life, in the real world where you've seen, but that's basically what that is, a combo box. Okay. So what happens is when you click this box, now you have the list of items that you want. Now, notice the difference between the 2 drop down boxes. So this one here, just a regular drop down, it also has a spot here where the cursor is blinking where you can enter information. So like when we're selecting our city or something like that, when you're filling out an application, you start typing, and let's say I start typing a B, and then it'll take all the B's will pop up. And then if I had BE, then all BE, like any string there that has BE in it. So this is what the drop down, the regular drop down would look like. It allows you a little text box area where you can enter information, that enter text to find what you're looking for. However, for the drop down list, it just shows you the list of items. In this case, it'll just show you the list of items, but you will not be able to type anything or search it, and you will have to just scroll through if it's a longer list. But they still work the same way when you're looking at like list boxes. This still has an index. So each of these still have an index here, okay? So whenever you're wanting to write code pertaining to that list box, they have an index as well, okay? I mean, that combo box, it has a link, okay? So this here, notice text display. So here, TXT is basically your text box, like it's like you're indicating a text box. And so here, what you're wanting to do is tell it what you want to display. All right, so in this instance, this text box, text name, is where we're wanting to display something. Now what will happen is here we have combo title.text, right? So this is our combo box, right? And then the name of it is title, all right? And then .text is basically gonna grab whatever is located there, all right? And what will be located there is based on what is selected. As you can see, her excellency is selected, so now that's what appears here, okay? So now that that appears there, that is what will be stored here. That is what will be printed or displayed here. All right, so it's taking her excellency, and then your concatenation symbol, and then you're giving it a little space, you're concatenating space, and then there's your concatenation symbol again, and then txt name dot text. So now it's going to grab whatever's in this text box, that text, right? And because we're using concatenation, it joins it together and it's going to display it in your display text box. So this is your display text box here. Okay, so now what we did was grabbing whatever is in combo title.text, which is her excellency, and which you see here, right? And then we use the concatenation, we did the space, in which that's your space in between, and then whatever's in txt name which is here, Queen Elizabeth, and now we're adding that here. So both have been concatenated and will display there. Okay, so just seeing other ways you can use your combo boxes, your text boxes, your drop-down boxes. Yeah. This is just another example. So you'll see here when you type in, all the N's pop up. Any, so all the NE, and then anything that follows. So it's all in alphabetical order, okay? All right, so the two additional controls we're gonna look at is the picture box and the menu script, okay? I won't dwell on picture box because we've kind of already done that, but you can add images to your form. So if you wanted to add a picture and all of that, you can. So what you would do is add a picture box object to your form, and the name or the prefix that you would use is PIC, and then you'll give it a name, and then you can add that particular. But we've already done this in several assignments, because in previous lecture videos I've already shown you that, and we've also used auto size and stretch image because we're trying to set the size mode to make sure it's visible. So hopefully I think that was like chapters 1 or 2 that I'm sorry, week 1 or 2 that I have shared that with you. Okay, but excuse me. Sorry, hold on a second. Okay, so you can also adjust the picture box during runtime. So right now we've already just add the object. So once the program debugs, is already there. But in some instances, you can write code so that whenever the program debugs, this happens during runtime. So pic box would be the name of the picture box. And then you're indicating image. So that's the property that you're trying to update. So image.fromFile. So you're pulling a file. And then you indicate the name of the file, whatever object, whatever image you're trying to grab and store it inside of that picture box. You can also change the size mode. So say, for example, you are adding an image at during runtime, so you don't really know what size it's going to be, and you want to make sure that it fits appropriately. So now you're going to access the picture box size mode and indicate I just want it to be auto size. Okay, so this is just another option, but right now just going ahead and adding the picture is totally okay. Okay. A menu script is like that little menu script. It kind of looks like Word when you're using Word, and they have all these different options here going across the menu bar. So same thing with your form. You can also add a menu script. I've introduced this to you in previous lecture videos already, but just seeing that you can indicate other options. So here, order, you wanting to indicate that you wanted to put everything in ascending order, descending order, just depends on what you're wanting to do. But right now we've just been using the menu script as an option to clear out everything in your form or exit. Okay, so it's just up to you what you want to add into your menu script. So I didn't want to dwell on that because we kind of already introduced it, and we'll just keep it simple at this point. Now, you can have multiple forms inside of your project. So right now we've been creating like one form at a time, but inside of your project you can add another form and another form, and you'll have one that will be your startup form, which means as your form loads, this is the form that will appear. Okay, and what will happen is you can toggle between the different forms that you have. Okay, so the steps for adding, these are the steps for adding a new form. Like I have again, pre-recorded lecture videos where we're adding another form. So you've likely already seen this, but just indicating this a little bit more because now you're likely get to really use it. Even though I introduced it, I haven't really required you to do it. But whenever you're wanting to add a new form, you'll just say, I want to add a Windows form. So you're wanting to add this to your current project, okay? And when you select the Windows form, which is just basically the same type of form that you started out with when you created the project, and then when you add it, it'll now indicate. So this is the window. You know, we always use Windows forms. So whenever you are adding that, you'll just indicate that I want to add a Windows form to it. All right. We'll get into adding a class later. But now you'll have more than one form listed. So we're used to having just one form, but now you'll have two forms. But of course, they should not be called Form 1 and Form 2. They should both have a name. So use the appropriate naming criteria. Okay. And then you can indicate which one will be your startup form, which will be your main form. You can designate which one of those. And you would just follow these steps whenever you're wanting to indicate which one would be the startup form, okay? But you can also include a new form, whatever it is that you're deciding that you want to add. And what will happen is you'll just reference that particular form by using the whatever variable name that you're going to use to store it. So you'll create... Excuse me. So you'll make it public, which we've talked about access specifiers, so that everything will be accessible throughout your project. So it makes it, even though I'm in this form writing code, I can access this other form. I can write code in my form by creating a form object, right? That will basically point to that other form, and it'll allow me to code and make changes and toggle between the two, which we'll get into that a little bit more when we're in the coding window. Now, whatever name you've given it, whatever the name of the form, and you see here is called other, but show dialog. This procedure will be used, and what will happen is it will open your main form. And whenever you have your model form, which is your main form, that means the focus is set there, and you can't work on any other form. You can't do anything with any other form. So as your main form, this is where the focus will be, okay? So what you will have to do is set it to be modeless, and which we'll talk about that later, but this is just showing you two different forms that you'll have. So you'll have this form here, income, which will be your startup form. This will be your main form. And then you have form sources, that will be the other form that you've created. Okay, so notice here you are writing code inside of the form sources code. So this is your second form. And here you're let's look at it again so you'll know what's here. So it has wages, interest income, and dividend income, and it has text boxes here for each of those. And then it has name, which it has a text box and a button. So compute total income. So whenever that button is clicked, this is what happens. And you're updating sum here. And so what happens is whatever value is inside of text wages, you're grabbing it, you're converting it to a decimal, right? And then you're taking whatever's in text income box, you're converting it to a decimal. And whatever's in the dividend income text box, you're converting it, and you notice the plus sign here. So you're adding all those values together. You're summing them up, and then you're storing the result in here. That's what will happen when that button is clicked, okay? And then here, what will happen in your main form is, because everything is set public, you're able to access your sources form. So here, form sources, right, which is your second form, dot text name, you're grabbing whatever name that's in that text box, and you're telling it you want to put whatever is displayed. So you want to grab, so let's back up so you'll see this here has a name too. A name text box, and it has a total income. This is your startup form. This is your main form, okay? So what will happen is you're saying whatever's in my form sources the other form, the second form. I want to grab whatever name is in that particular text box, right? I want to grab that. So in that particular text box, I want to take whatever is in text name, whatever that value is, and I want to store it. All right. So you're taking and you're storing. And then here you're going to say form sources show dialog. So now you're wanting that to be visible. You want it because right now you're inside of that form. You're allowing it to be the focus, right? And then what's going to happen is now you're saying in your text box, inside of your startup form, your main form, you want to take the sum that was calculated in sources, and you're taking that value and you're making it string. And you want it to be in currency format. So you're grabbing that, you're printing it, displaying it as a string, and you're using the currency format. So that will be displayed in that particular text box. Okay. So that's what we have happening here. So that's just showing how you can have two different forms that have code in it, and you can reference one form in the other. Okay. Okay. All right. So here, this is just indicating how you can close your forms and stuff. We already looked at the close procedure, which closes one. How you can show and hide dialog. Definitely check back in your textbook or the other videos that are listed there, just to see how you can hide your form, and you can also show your form. So you can indicate in your code what you